The world is full of urban legends, remarkable stories that spread like viruses around the planet, mutating and evolving until no one can remember which ones are true and which ones are urban legends. In this episode called Skeletons in the Closet, we show you 3 stories linked by buried secrets erupting to the surface. First up, a Milwaukee detective loses himself in a viciously vexing case. Then, a South Carolina man's fate looks grim as he desperately waits for a kidney donor. And finally, a New York woman begins a suspicious online friendship, which leads her to the unthinkable. Watch all 3 stories and decide which urban legends are true and which ones are false. Find out if you guessed right at the end of the show. First, it's a story we like to call Troublesome Tipster. As a respected member of the Milwaukee Police Department, Detective Herb Dunhill has seen it all. But nothing compares to the case that defined the career of his partner, Detective Scott Pearson.
Never would I have dreamed that type of thing could happen. It was just beyond my comprehension to understand this.
Detective Pearson was a workaholic with a track record for closing cases quickly.
Being a detective was the most important thing in his life. That's what he lived for.
In September of 2008, Pearson became consumed with a string of bank robberies he couldn't seem to crack. There were no viable suspects.
He was very frustrated and couldn't understand why he couldn't get to the bottom of it.
Pearson is obsessed with a confounding case, but has no idea how it will ultimately rip him apart. A break comes late one night in mid-October, when Pearson receives a text message from someone claiming to have information needed to solve the robberies.
These text messages were hints about the different cases. They were always with disposable cell phones, so he never could get a trace. And this drove him crazy.
And so begins a maddening cat and mouse game. With every text comes a useful bit of information, but never quite enough for Pearson to figure it all out.
Oh, it frustrated him immensely. He didn't like to be played with.
But who could this cryptic caller be? He won't have to wait long to find out. 2.5 months later, something finally gives.
He felt that this was the lead that was going to solve the case for him.
A strike team is briefed on the situation as Pearson stands by for the next text.
And that's when Scott finally got the text that actually gave him the address. Well, at that point, he became somewhat agitated, and he stayed in the background.
The team arrives at the location, but something is wrong with Pearson. No one is at home. But as the mysterious text promised, the detectives make an important discovery.
The other officers proceeded to search the premises, and they found a gun and stuff that had come from these different robberies.
This should be Pearson's moment of glory, but something is very wrong. It's the location. They're standing in Pearson's house.
He said to me, "I've been framed." I didn't know what to think. But I'd known Scott for a long time. I decided I was going to just wait, give him the benefit of the doubt, see how things turned out. I couldn't imagine that my partner could have been involved in these crimes.
But the evidence is overwhelming. Pearson is arrested and interrogated. His prints later turn up on the gun.
I couldn't believe it. I'd known him for so long. I found it hard to believe that he could actually be a thief.
What are you guys? Your fingerprints.
But unbelievably, it's true. Pearson really was the bank robber. A search of his locker reveals another shocking revelation.
In the bottom, they found all these cell phones covered with his prints. And these were the phones that had made the text messages.
But why would he have been calling attention to his own crimes?
Scott was sent for a psychiatric evaluation, and they determined that Scott had multiple personalities. One personality was sending the text messages, and the other one was receiving them.
The tipster was a personality Pearson had invented to help him solve the crimes he'd committed himself. Pearson is found guilty of the crimes, but successfully pleads diminished responsibility.
Never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined this happening to a friend of mine. Unbelievable.
A man unknowingly has multiple personalities, one of which committed the crimes, another who gave him away. But did it happen? You'll have to wait till the end of the show to find out. But before then, take a look at this mini-myth. Mini-myth number 281, pregnancy. Florida teenager Kelly Scott was dismayed when her stomach started swelling one day. Soon after, she's hit with morning sickness and bizarre food cravings. Although she pleads that she's still a virgin and can't be pregnant, no one buys it. Finally, a routine ultrasound proves her right. It's not a baby, it's a tumor. But when surgeons operate, they get a bigger surprise. The tumor is actually a baby octopus. Experts conclude that this unique pregnancy was caused during one of her many swims in the ocean. The octopus was removed, and Kelly made a full recovery. So, is it true or pregnantly preposterous? It was false. Newspapers have claimed that humans have given birth to frogs, squids, octopi, and snakes. But it's biologically impossible. On Urban Legends, we show you 3 stories. You have to decide which ones really happened and which ones are merely legends. So far, you've seen the tale of Scott Pearson, whose personality disorder had him committing crimes and trying to solve them all at the same time. But is it true or false? Find out at the end of the show. Now it's time for our next story. It's called Kidney Kinship. Alma Lynn Hayden looks like a happy Southern belle, but much of her life has been plagued by tragedy.
I didn't really understand what was going to happen, how many lives were going to change, because of this.
In 1998, Alma Lynn was a proud single mother who would do just about anything for her son Clay. She had raised him by herself, making a living as a commercial artist. But today, Alma Lynn's devotion to her son will be put to the ultimate test. Clay hasn't been well for some time.
Hello?
And the news is every mother's worst nightmare.
The doctor called me, and he said, there's definitely something going on.
Clay has a life-threatening problem. An infection has destroyed most of his kidneys. He needs a transplant, or he will die.
He became deathly ill. It was very scary.
Alma Lynn makes an amazing decision. She's going to give one of her kidneys to Clay.
I was not a perfect match, but I was a good enough match, so we planned the transplant.
It's a risky procedure, but Alma Lynn will do anything she can to save Clay. She's already lost one son.
Back in the 60s, times were different about young unwed mothers. And once my parents found out, my choice was made for me. Then I went off to an unwed mother's home and had a little baby boy.
Alma Lynn hasn't seen him since, but his absence has left a hole in her heart all of these years.
I lost a baby, and now one of my other children is facing a terminal illness if it's not corrected.
Mercifully, Alma Lynn isn't going to lose her son Clay as well. The transplant is a success.
Almost immediately, he felt wonderful.
All right.
Happy times. Clay was a real champ.
It's great to have an appetite again.
But tragically, the joy is short-lived. A few years later, the awful ordeal starts all over again.
He went into what they call a chronic rejection, and that was simply because we were not a perfect match. So eventually, the drugs can do all they can do, and the body can take all it can take.
Clay desperately needs another transplant, but this one isn't as easy to find. The kidney would have to be a perfect match.
And I was starting to think about, oh my goodness, what are we going to do?
Unless a miracle happens, this time Clay will die.
And I felt helpless.
And you're gonna get better.
But just when all hope is lost, something astonishing happens.
The phone rings. And the person on the other end said, Mrs. Hayden. And I said, oh, yes, I am. And he says, well, you don't know me. And I knew it right then. And he said, my name is David Lister, and I think you're my mother.
Could it really be her long-lost son? She's about to see the child she hasn't laid eyes on in 40 years.
The initial embrace was the most unbelievable thing for both of us.
David has read about the family's search for a donor in a local newspaper.
Oh, I can't believe I'm here.
But how did David figure out that Alma Lynn is his mother? It's an incredible coincidence that has brought them together.
David's son developed a heart murmur, and it was a significant heart murmur.
Doctors told him he must get his full medical history, which means that David must find his birth mother. With the help of state adoption records, he tracks her down.
But the timing that he started the search and the timing that was needed desperately within the family was just what the amazing part was.
Just as one medical crisis threatens to rip apart her family, another reunites it for the first time. And an even bigger miracle is about to come.
And he says, I want to be tested. And I said, we just couldn't ask you to do that. And he says, no, I really want to do this.
But with Clay's past rejection, no ordinary kidney will do.
You have to be the same blood type, and there are 6 antigens in the blood, and David had all 6.
Unbelievably, David is a perfect match and is willing to give a kidney to Clay, just in the nick of time. Alma Lynn has come so far and endured so much, and now both of her sons are under the knife at the same time.
I don't think I've ever been that frightened in my life.
But the gamble pays off.
Here's a guy who doesn't know you, he's related by blood, and he wants to try to step in and save your life. And that was just probably one of the biggest moments in my life, ever. It was such a happy time, I can't even explain it in words. I remember a certain point that I thought, okay, this is the defining moment that's actually going to make our family stay this close.
Clay and David make a perfect recovery.
Gave his brother a kidney, saved his brother's life. He made me whole again, and he just saved our family.
A family plagued by tragedy is reunited after a chain of incredible events. But did it really happen? You'll have to wait until the end of the show to find out. But for now, take a look at this mini-myth. Mini-myth number 1029, Bug Blast. With his arachnophobic wife freaking out over a spider behind the toilet, Chris Welding sprang to action with a can of bug spray. The heroic husband let rip behind the loo, even though a broken light bulb meant he was operating in the dark. Assuming the deed was done, Chris used his cigarette lighter to check for a creepy crawl carcass. Big mistake. The flame ignited fumes from the aerosol can, causing an explosion so powerful it blew him off his feet and rocked the entire room. Is it true or completely connoted? This story is totally true. Chris escaped with burns, but the emergency services were unable to confirm the spider's fate. On Urban Legends, we show you 3 incredible stories. Your mission is to sort the totally true from the fantastically false. So far, you've seen the tale of the split personalities of Scott Pearson, one a bank robber, the other a cop. And the story of Alma Lynn Hayden, who gave up a son for adoption, only to have him turn up just in time to save his brother. But which ones are real and which ones are fake? All will be revealed at the end of the show. In the meantime, watch our final story. We've named it Double Take. Tamara Rabi always looks for the good in people, but a bizarre series of events over a decade ago shattered her faith in human nature.
At that point, I was just like, oh my God, like, what is going on?
Manhattan, 2000. Tamara is planning to attend a small liberal arts college, but instead chooses Hofstra, a large university on Long Island.
I don't really know why I chose the university I went to. Even my mother was kind of like, Tamara, are you sure you want to go to this school in Long Island?
Tamara quickly adapts to the hustle of university life. But one night, when her friends throw her a surprise party, she meets the person who would turn her entire world on its head.
There was this kid there who I'd never seen before. And this boy, you know, was staring at me.
Hey, how's it going?
He was like, I know a girl who looks just like you.
Exactly like you.
And then again, he grabbed my attention. And at that point, I was kind of like, who is this guy? He was very, very persistent. You know, in my mind, I was kind of like, okay, that was strange.
But just 24 hours later, Tamara is about to have another weird experience.
My friend who had brought this guy to my birthday party IM'd me and said, you know, that girl that my friend told you looked like is online right now. Do you want her screen name?
Although she has no way of knowing who she's really chatting with or what they want, Tamara decides to play along.
The first words that I typed were, I hear you look like me. And the response that I saw back read, I hear you look like me too.
The person says her name is Adriana and that she grew up on Long Island, but everything else she claims about herself is identical to Tamara.
I was like, what is going on?
But who is it really, and what is their game? Could it be the creepy guy from the party?
How well do you know her?
Tamara goes home for the weekend. She tells her family about the strange coincidence, but they are more alarmed than curious.
My mother's cousin said, what if it's someone trying to steal her identity? We don't know who she's talking to online.
I just want to, find out what's going on.
Despite her fear that it all may be an elaborate scam, something pulls Tamara towards her mysterious online friend.
And then she asked me where I was born. And I typed, I was born in Guadalajara, Mexico. And she responded, me too.
The fast and identical responses look suspicious. It seems someone is simply trying to elicit information.
And she typed, what's your last name? So I just immediately typed back Robbie. And then she typed, I'll talk to you later. I have to go.
But Tamara is about to discover this is far, far more than just an internet scam.
So that was kind of the last day that my life was as I had known it for the past 20 years.
The next day, Adriana appears again. This time, it's different. She wants to meet in person. Unable to resist her curiosity, Tamara heads to the rendezvous with some friends as backup.
I felt like I was in a movie. I said, let's just leave. I don't really want to do this anymore. Like, I'm really scared. Then all of a sudden, their faces turned white, their eyes popped out of their head, and they started freaking out.
Tamara is about to come face to face with her destiny. It's an astonishing revelation.
It was so unreal and surreal and exciting and scary. And I mean, It was so strange.
She's looking at an identical twin sister that up until now she didn't know existed. The girls were adopted separately from Mexico at birth. While Tamara's parents knew nothing of a twin, Adriana's knew a little, including the adopted family's name, Rabbi. That was the last piece of the puzzle for Adriana.
If I didn't go to the school that I chose, sometimes I think none of this would have happened. Sometimes I think it would have been inevitable. Some part of me thinks, the universe works in strange ways that you can't always avoid certain things happening.
An adopted young woman spends her life not knowing about her twin sister, only to find her at her own university. But did it happen, or are you seeing double deception? It's time to reveal the truth about our three incredible stories. First up, it's the story of Scott Pearson, whose personality disorder created the perfect conflict between cop and robber. But is it fact or fiction?
My name is not Herb Dunhill, and this is a fake story.
This story is fake, but there are many legends around the idea of multiple personalities. Next, it's a story of Alma Lynn Hayden and the incredible coincidence of her long-lost son turning up just in time to save his brother's life. But is it true?
My name is Alma Lynn Hayden, and I'm happy to say that this is my true story.
Incredibly, it really happened, and the family has since grown very close. Which leaves a story of Tamara Rabbi, who, by getting to know a stranger online, discovered she had an identical twin sister.
I'm Tamara Rabbi.
And I'm Adriana Scott.
And this is a true story.
This story is totally true. Tamara and Adriana were lucky indeed to both end up in Long Island and find each other. That's the end of our episode called Skeletons in the Closet. Were you able to unmask the revealing real from the foolishly fake? Don't worry if you couldn't. You'll get another chance to separate fact from fiction in the next installment of Urban Legend.